Next up is going to be a messy one, I'm sure. It's going to be NIP versus Team One after NIP last week just tore through the competition. Let's see if they can keep it up. But before we do, we're going to have a quick introduction into both squads.
The return of NIP to BR6 could not be more challenging, and they would hardly be more profitable. Facing off against the second and third place from the 6th Invitational in Liquid and MIVR, both would prove a pushover for NIP, taking 7-1 victories in both matches.
Passando o vapo na cavalaria, hein, Tactão?
And now the journey of NIP remains difficult, since the opponent next on the block is Team One. In the first stage, the meeting between the teams ended with a Ninja's victory by 7-4.
Bom, o confronto contra a Team One no Consulado era um confronto bem importante pra gente. Querendo ou não, era o que valia a vaga pra gente. A gente teve uns resultados negativos e deixou logo pro último confronto contra eles. Foi, bem pesado pra gente não esperava precisar disso, mas a gente conseguiu.
O primeiro confronto contra a NiP no Consulado foi uma partida bem difícil, assim. Eles vieram com táticas bem sólidas e algumas até counters contra nossas táticas que a gente vinha utilizando. Então, aquela partida foi uma chave virada ali pro nosso time que fez uma baita diferença aí pro decorrer do campeonato, do primeiro turno.
The Golden Boys also returned from Paris with renewed vigour, as they also took down both of their Week 1 opponents in W7M and Furia, albeit a bit less decisively. Team One will be riding high on momentum coming into the week, but must proceed with caution as the best team in the world awaits them this week.
Cara, o jogador da NiP que acho que a gente tem que ficar de olho é o Pino. O Pino é um cara bem inteligente, um cara que parece estudar bastante jogo, ele sabe os pontos que ele pode sair na vantagem. Então acho que ele é o cara aí que faz uma baita diferença para a equipe.
Bom, o jogador da Team One é muito importante pra gente sempre ficar de olho nele, é o alemão, ele consegue buscar bastante kill, acha bastante espaço no mapa, é um jogador importante pra ficar de olho.
The best team in the world now face a mature and still unpredictable roster. Will the Golden Boys be up to the challenge of stopping the best team in Rainbow Six, or will the plucky underdogs topple the giants? Check out the following confrontation between Ninjas and Pyjamas and Team One.
Two big squads coming into this game. Of course, NiP, after winning SI, after tearing through the competition last week, have to be the favorites for a lot of people. But honestly, Team One are looking promising right now. They won both of their games last week as well, but maybe not as decisively though, Ollie.
It really is one of those situations where Team One are a team that have proved themselves over Stage 1, they proved themselves at 6th Invitational, but now they're going back up against the big dogs in NIP, and NIP have set this precedent that they're just going to be going 7-1, 7-2, 7-0, and they're always going to be trying to get that sort of stomp off. For me, it's going to be a big battle, and it's two big mammoth teams going at it. It's so difficult to call. Like we can't sit here and say last week was a fluke for NIP, because of their previous form and then their prowess that they bring, but we can't write them off in this one. Like, it's just so up in the air.
It absolutely is, and with a team like NIP, everyone has their eyes on them as well. So sure, they might be the best in the world right now, but everyone has painted a target on it and on NIP's back after their win at SI and their performance last week. So the question is, Gio, are Team Number One prepared for this, and are they prepared enough? Because sure, they might think, oh, we know everything about NIP's game plan, but they're one of those squads that's just so adaptable.
You would hope that they're pretty prepared, and I have no doubts that they've put in the work to be as prepared as they can be. But when you're looking at NIP, who did have the performance that they had last week, it's very hard to look at that and be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be easy, we got it. They probably don't. So that's not me saying that I think Team One are gonna lose. I just mean there's no way that they're gonna look at this and think this is an easy feat that they are 100% prepared for. I suspect they've done their best and are hoping for the best.
I'm sure they are hoping for the best as well. They are also going to be hoping that they can get one of their stronger maps, because this is going to be one of those matchups where it could go either way, whether you have one of those frag-heavy, puggy kind of maps or one of the strategic ones. I think both teams are going to be able to shine. Ollie, if you had to make a prediction, I'm not going to ask you exactly which map, but what kind of map do you expect us to be ending up on here?
We've seen a little bit of everything, haven't we? We saw NIP play Villa and Clubhouse last week. So they've kind of done the sort of checklist maps. I'd like to see something fun. My favourite map in the pool is Consulate, so I always secretly hope for a Consulate. And I don't believe we've seen one yet, Gio. If so, we've maybe only seen one, but I really don't remember it.
Yeah, no, we have not seen one, and okay, well, I guess we will now. And interestingly, this is actually the map that these two played against each other when they played in their game in Stage 1 as well, which was a 7-4 victory to Ninjas in Pyjamas. So Team 1, you can't even say narrowly missed out on that one. That wasn't a particularly strong game for them. Clearly, they feel convicted that they can come back here. They've only played Consulate a couple of times in the last few months. They beat Team Liquid, they beat Furia. NIP, the only team that they have lost Consulate to.
The question is, though, NIP, can they keep it going? Because you've got to feel like Team 1 right now, after losing that map last time, have probably taken a lot of notes of maybe even completely adjusted their game plan. Do you expect any major changes here, Ollie, to Team 1's playstyle, or are they going to keep it relatively similar, stick with what's comfortable?
I'm not sure how Flores will sort of shoulder barge his way into a composition for Consulate. I imagine that there's room for Flores to
Garage, I
sort of get on in Garage, and imagine taking over a sort of bathroom and antechamber area as well. That could actually work quite nicely. So there are going to be opportunities there for teams to adapt and to change the way that they attack into Consulate, in that there is a new operator available to use. We did see Team 1 using Flores last week as well. Alamau got himself a little bit of success with that operator. So there's a chance that Team 1 have done a little bit of homework here and they're willing to change things up. But Consulate is just a map that is so embedded into LATAM. It's always a bit of a treat to get to watch teams play it.
It absolutely is, and I think this match is going to be an absolute treat. Speaking of which, it is getting underway right now. So, Ollie, Gio, it's going to be a fun one. Take it away.
Thank you very much indeed, Chunks. We are going to head to Consulate for our third game of the night. Not quite whipping through them at the lightning pace we did last week, Gio, but we're getting by. Already we're on to... I think this is probably one of the hottest fixtures tonight. I think a lot of people have got their eyes on this one, especially after how Nip played last week. It's sort of do it again. I think a lot of people are watching, and I'm one of them. I'm watching this and I'm like, I'm like, Nip, go on, do it again then. You know, you've done it twice, do it again. Do it again.
Yeah, I dare you.
Yeah.
Cowards. They've got a lot of pressure to... Can you imagine if a team did a whole stage of 7-1s?
No, I can't imagine.
No, it's hard to imagine, but it would be funny if that did happen. The first interesting ban that we've actually had today is Vigil. Honestly, we've had Thatcher bans on every single game today. Last week, we actually got a bit of a respite from that. But, no, this time, there's been a lot of Thatcher bans. So throwing the Vigil in there, I like that. I appreciate it.
Certainly a target. Removing Vigil, removing that roam potential. NIP on the defense here as well. We talk so many times about that dangerous combination of Pino and Muzi out there on the roam, and I mean, you can throw anybody into that. You could throw Psycho into it. I think the thing that I'm most surprised at, Gio, is that we've seen a Vigil banned and a Valkyrie let through, like on Consulate.
Yes, that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't even thought about it. And, I mean, Psycho immediately has taken the opportunity to pick that one up. With NIP starting off on the defense, I mean, if I'm Team 1, I don't think I would want to give them that huge an advantage. Clearly, they went for the Vigil ban as a very specific target against NIP. It seems like a very random ban that you would otherwise bring in, and so they're hoping to directly disrupt NIP's way of playing. But it does mean with Valkyrie made through, not only has Valkyrie made it through, but Team 1 have decided not to play IQ.
Yeah, no IQ. Kind of forced into the Nomad, honestly. Because of the Valkyrie. So you are somewhat limited. We haven't seen Flores be brought. There's honestly maybe too much pressure on the composition as it is to bring Flores to try and get certain tasks done. No Zafir, no Ashe either. Not entirely unusual with Iana, but still semi-noteworthy. Especially when the site is going to be downstairs. Now, Alamau is going to be on the book. Now, that is something that we have come to expect at this point. They are doubling down with Neskin bringing the sledge as well. And they're going to look to try and perform that top floor clear. Get themselves in as they're burning out the pests there. If anyone's confused as to why Alamau is just immediately shooting his own drone, he's getting rid of those alibi pests. That's then going to allow them to further gather a little bit of information. Psycho getting a little bit brave on top of yellow stairs. He is droned here, but not immediately being pushed.
This is immediately very different to the way that NIP liked to defend onto Garage last stage. They would usually put Pino on the mute in the bathroom that's upstairs and kind of having watch over Piano. They would have players placed downstairs and play, I mean, kind of passively. Like maybe Muzi would be out and about somewhere, but other than that, there'd be a lot of presence downstairs. What we did also find was their reactions were a bit slow in the last stage too. You know, for example, if a team actually managed to break down into the site itself, you would still see Pino just chilling out in the bathroom upstairs. Well, straight away, not only is their composition different, the way that they're playing is different, they look a lot more flexible and ready to react to anything. I don't think Muzi realized that he was being droned here, so that's going to be really valuable information sent over to the remainder of Team 1. We'll see if they can actually act on it.
Could be about to see an engagement, and yes, we are. Muzi takes down Alamau. Nobody immediately in position to trade that one off. Muzi hasn't got a lot of health. He's only going to be a couple of bullets, but the danger is him finding a second here as well and really doubling down. Now, Levy still has all 3 air jabs. At this point, with 35 seconds left, why? Why are all 3 air jabs still alive? That happens. Honestly, unforgivable at this point. Muzi has been given a freebie. No air jabs placed. Julio is able to keep a hold of the garage door. People are going to push on in, and honestly, everyone is going to die. C4 comes on through from Muzi, so that's now 2 kills that he's been able to find post-flank. KDS, he's going to be in the 1 versus 5. 7 seconds left. The diffuser cold on the ground at the front of white van. Rinse and repeat stuff here for NIP. Carrying on as they started last week. Nice little flawless round to kick them off.
Honestly, it's really disappointing that Team 1 had as much information on Muzi as they did. It was not 1, but 2 drones that they had over towards Visa and the top of Visa stairs, and still nothing was acted upon. If they knew that Muzi was going down the Visa stairs or the service stairs or whatever you want to call them, down into the basement, you could have easily set up a flank. Easily is obviously a certain choice of words. It's not necessarily easy, but the point is you had the information that would have been able to guide you for something like that. And it seemed that none of that was actually acted upon. Now, sure, maybe there would have been things in the comms saying, okay, Muzi's going down here. We know that this area is open. But if you're not gaining impactful kills off of the back of the information you're using, you are still no closer to winning the round. And all we saw in that round was Team 1 getting chipped off and off and off further and further. Now, look at this. One of my complaints from the first round was that they had allowed Psycho to play Valkyrie without bringing an IQ to go up against it. Alamau straight up has decided to switch off of Buck and go for the IQ. And I think they realize simply how important it is to target the information that NIP have for themselves.
It really is going to force them into that information gathering part of the round a little bit more. Psycho is going to be able to place those black eye cameras out there. It's going to assist as well, obviously, in dealing with things like the Wamai magnets and pests from Mozzie. It isn't a bad thing to bring an IQ. It's just not always necessary, but when there are so many options for outside cameras here on Consulate, let alone thinking about inside possibilities as well, it can make it very difficult to start to keep a track of them. And that's kind of sometimes where you'll see teams that will just go, you know what, we're just not going to run the IQ. We're just going to try and search them out and take our chances. But obviously, in this case, Team One, you can't just take your chances against the current world champions. They need to have a plan to deal with all this information that is currently available. Flash going to be causing some problems in the early part of the round as well, as Neskin's on the rappel, but can't really do anything with it.
Neskin, nice C4 from Pino. I was going to say Neskin was the first player of Team 1 to take a hefty amount of damage in the last round, and the same goes for this one. Pino trying to get rid of this drone, which he eventually does do, and Almaun's going to have to back off while he opens up the yellow window. Pino knows where he is, and that's why Levy is positioned exactly where he is too, to try and trap him in that space. But it looks like Almaun's going to be taking a bit of damage as he goes up against Kamikaze, who will swiftly be removed off of the map. Pino too, and finally Team 1 have a foothold.
But the question is, for how long? An equal 2 versus 2. Still a lot of time remaining. The diffuser cold. C4 that was pre-placed has now been used. Muzi does still have his. He's getting a lot of damage dealt to him, though. There's long-range engagement here by Levy. Ooh, unfortunate stuff for Levy. Goes for a cross and will be taken on out. Now, KDS has recovered the kit. Default camera still being up. Not very helpful at this point, but he will be eventually able to take it out. Nade goes through. Not going to deal any damage as Muzi is forced to play this relatively safely as he isn't on a lot of health. He probably should be the one to go and challenge first. Psycho going to aggress on up as well. KDS instantly going to swing and find himself one. Can he land his shots on Psycho? Thinks about drawing for the pistol, but thinks better of it. Just gets caught between a rock and a hard place. Do I reload or do I change weapon? It's all too late. Psycho, he's going to swing you. He isn't giving you the time to think.
No, that was a very pressurizing situation at the end, and even though Team 1 got the plant down, of course NIP can defuse it with plenty of time remaining. What I will say, though, is that is one step closer to actually taking a round for yourself, so grats for Team 1. And to be honest, they did play a lot better there. The way that they tried to take the attentions of certain players of NIP in order to facilitate their push, I thought that was good. They trapped Pino in a very specific position and were very quick to take him down once the opportunity arose. Kamikaze was gotten rid of very quickly too, and he was another player on the Clash who was kind of being distracted. It was like when you hold a little shiny thing in front of a cat and you can sneak past without the cat knowing. It's that kind of thing, right? So Team 1 were pretty methodical in the way that they did that, and even though the final engagement came down to being quite scrappy and pressurizing, that doesn't necessarily reflect on the round as a whole.
Well, the scoreline is currently 2-0 to NIP. Round 1, not so close. Round 2, a little bit closer. Team 1, are they going to be able to make these adjustments and get themselves where they need to be? I don't want to fall victim to the same as the previous teams that have faced NIP so far. Those teams, of course, being Liquid and MIBR, two teams that we would expect to have a good showing against this squad, but Team 1, I'm not going to pit them as the last remaining hope to take down NIP, but they're up there, you know, of the teams that we've got left. Who's going to be the one to, you know, finally take a couple of rounds or even the game? And, well, Alamaui isn't going to be involved too much in this round. He's mainly going to be flicking through those cameras.
Note again that Team 1 have decided not to bring IQ again. And I suppose that if they had, it would be redundant at this point because it was Alamau who was playing IQ last time, and as you already mentioned, he did. So, yeah, flicking through cameras, that's a good job for him. Hopefully they can actually capitalize on some of the information that he passes along, which was something that they struggled to do back on round number 1. NIP defending the middle floor site of lobby and press. Nice black eye camera that hasn't been spotted, and this could just entirely facilitate some kind of jump out, some kind of projectile throw, whatever it may be. NIP know exactly where these players from Team 1 are outside of the building.
Oh, Pino. He's going to be able to take down Levy. Again. Another C4 going to be ripped on here, but ADS is just going to be the other side of that wall on the white stairs where it is relatively safe. So much intel still available, and you might question why the outside cameras, why not the inside cameras, why aren't the cameras on the site? Well, people spend a lot of time on the rappel on Consulate, and they spend a lot of time establishing that push from the outside. Now, being able to gather that information and then having an almost ungodly amount of map knowledge allows you to throw C4s. It allows you to be able to challenge aggressively, know where players are going to come in from, and it's like NIP are just one step ahead all the time. So, really, Team 1 coming at this from the back foot yet again. 40 seconds left remain. Is that information on another player? I think it might be. Neskin finds himself down. Muzi not looking to confirm the kill just yet. He knows his teammate can do that. He's more interested in what KDS is doing. The next kill comes on through. None other than Julio and Pino. And, well, we see another flawless round for NIP.
They just look so clean. It almost looks unnatural. You know what I mean? Like, even the best teams you're so used to seeing have flaws, but NIP seem to be exhibiting none at this point. And I wonder how much Team 1 are going to be regretting the fact that they didn't ban Valkyrie. It's just been working too well for NIP. Even if it had been simply that one black eye that were left outside that we saw, that alone gave NIP enough value in that round for them to shut down a lot of Team 1's approach. So it's really painful as well. And Team 1 are sticking to their guns with not going back to IQ. At this point, it looks like they've only decided to play IQ when they're going up on the top floor. And I understand why they would want to bring Buck. You need the soft destruction when attacking onto this site. Alamau is a specialist Buck player, so likely not going to be playing Sledge over Buck if there is the option. And KDS can bring along nades. Neskin's going to be on Sledge himself, so he gets nades. So entirely, you kind of fulfill what it is that Team 1 feel comfortable in doing. It just means that there is this one threat that you're not typically used to playing against on Consulate because of how normal it is for her to be banned out. That is suddenly there, always in the background, and you're not directly looking to target it.
Well, Team 1 have found at least one of the cameras this time. It does still remain for the time being, but it did get pinged out on the drone and will now be removed. It still gives Psycho a little bit of information. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see him still try and make something of what he knows. Team 1 are clearly on the back foot here. Maybe not just mentally, but also actually getting themselves into the game. We've still got 2 players on no kills and, well, only 4 kills on the entire team. We're into round 4 now, so you need to be getting a little bit more than that under your belt. Obviously, other contributions are necessary, but they've not even killed the entire team yet of NIP. They don't even have 5 kills between them, so that's where the problem really starts to hit home.
That's just painful, isn't it?
It's bad, isn't it?
I didn't even think about it. I didn't even look at it like that. Not even 5 kills between them, and this is the team that really impressed everybody the most. And I say the most because it's a relatively new team. You know, people didn't necessarily expect them to do as well as they did last stage, nor in SI, whereas you look at teams like Liquid, NIP, MIBR, even though they did very well, you still have a certain level of expectation about that. Team 1 didn't. And yet they just showed up so much in the last stage and at SI. And you put them in this environment, and they have 4 kills combined.
It's just got to be partly the mental game of going up against NIP. Like, NIP, they've had the opening kill in every single round. I think Alamau's been the opening death in at least 2 of those. as he falls again now. Pino's just popping off. Kamikaze hasn't got a kill, but he's not even needed to. I'm not even sure if Kamikaze has seen anybody. I'm going to be honest with you. That guy isn't even getting into the gunfights because everything is happening.
He saw Alamau when he was on Clash. That was it.
Okay, so does that count? Has he had the opportunity to kill someone? No. Pino, he is going to be doing his usual. He's picked up 2 kills at the opening portion of this round, and well, he doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Now going to use his C4 to open up some vertical angles and give himself a little bit of a better line of sight. Muzi, another player that has been very effective, particularly in these lurking positions. Looking dangerous. A flawless round is halted. KDS will take down Muzi. Neskin still upstairs in piano. KDS now going to be holding Pino, and he doesn't miss those. Triple kill for the round. Neskin looking to push down yellow stairs aggressively, but he's got too many players to try and deal with. Julio, he picks up that final frag. Pino still hasn't been shut down, and NIP continue their fine form.
I just want to note as well, it sort of goes back to something that I mentioned in round number 1, but when you're attacking onto that site, it's very important to be opening up the floor of piano. And we saw it a little bit in that round. And the thing that we are noticing with Team 1, I think, in that kind of endeavor is that the way that NIP have set up the bathroom is very different to the way that they did it last stage. Last stage, they would reinforce it a lot. They'd really bunker down in it. This stage, they're leaving it soft, and they're having kind of the foothold shot out. But we did just see in that round that they are big enough for someone to crawl through. Now, the reason that this is relevant is I think it's having a really detrimental effect on Team 1's ability to get into piano and actually starting to open up the floor. When we saw Neskin opening up the floor in that last round, there were 13 seconds left of the round. That is a ridiculous point on the clock to actually be opening up the floor. Maybe you'll be able to get a pick if you're lucky, maybe, but it's not really going to have a substantial effect on the rest of the round. It should be much, much sooner within the round that you are actually getting that done. And I think the way that NIP have set up upstairs is really contributing towards that.
Yeah, I would agree. It's very difficult to start to get anything happening when you're going up against such a man deficit every single time. I think we've just got a couple of players that are going to be resetting their PCs at the moment. It's, I think, Psycho and Kamikaze. Got something that they need to reset for. So hence the break and the player cams that you get to see live from Brazil. We get to see players. Nice addition to this stage, should I say, of the BR6. Gives a little bit more of that behind the scenes. A lot of these teams playing from team houses as well. So all in the same room, having that sort of pseudo LAN experience, if you will, playing shoulder to shoulder. And I mean, you get both edges of that. Don't forget, you get the good times when it's good, and you get the ropey times when it ain't going so well. Team 1 certainly look a little bit more subdued than NIP. NIP fairly well relaxed inside of this game, currently sitting at 4-0. And well, after last week, they've kind of proved any of the doubters, and I mean, not that there were really proper doubts. It was almost just like you were saying, Gio, dares,
Yeah.
And they've sort of taken everyone up on that. They go, yep, we'll do it. Don't worry.
Yeah. They're certainly living up to it. I mean, it is too early to give any definitive idea of what's going to happen. And the other thing, especially in Siege, is at the turn of the half, you never know what's going to happen. And the one thing that we can look at is the fact that historically NIP have looked a little bit on some of their Consulate attacks. That improved a lot during SI. I think they played... should have had the statistics up so I could sound really smart. But I do remember during SI thinking I wasn't seeing as many of the same problems in some of their attacks. They looked very slow, which we already know based on last weekend has been predominantly fixed. But some of their decision-making on Consulate would be a bit strange. So while I can say that and be like, yeah, that could still be a problem and that could be something that Team 1 do really well on, judging by how well NIP have lasered down on the problems that they recognized they had, even small problems, and how well they have been able to very specifically target them and improve based on that, I would assume, rather safely right now, that NIP have probably fixed a lot of those problems. So you can say, yeah, at the half, maybe it'll all be different, but seeing the way that NIP have improved on such specific things, it's so hard to just assume they're not going to be good enough.
It is. And it's very difficult because, as you say, if this was, if we were at last stage, we'd be going into this now saying, well, NIP, whilst they're up on the defense, they've got problems on the attack. Last week, they won 5 attacking rounds on Clubhouse against Liquid. Like, just let that sink in for a moment. Like, these guys can attack now. Whatever has happened over the course of the last couple of months, they have been able to really get themselves together and start to play as good on the defense as they do on the attack, or vice versa, and really just become a little bit of a, dare we say it, super team. So I'm not really expecting the side switch to have much of an impact on this game. Now, I'm looking over at my screen now. I'm seeing that they're remaking the lobby. So we can see that we're just going to be in for a couple more seconds. We're going to get Chunks back in for that time whilst that all goes on behind the scenes as we're getting back on in.
Yeah, it looks like we are having a couple technical issues after that restart of the PCs, so we're doing a quick rehost. We'll get the teams back in no time, but I gotta say, what a start coming out for NIP so far. They've taken the first few rounds pretty decisively. Ollie, do you see any way that Team One are going to be able to close this gap when NIP just appear to be on top form right now?
I mean, it's probably going to help when Team One go on the defense, not because NIP can't attack, but because they won't be able to bring Valkyrie. But what they will be able to bring is 10 drones, and potentially more if they bring Flores, and potentially more information on top of that, because something that really is working for NIP is their information, and you cannot deny it. Their information, the exchange of said information, I mean, it doesn't really go far. It goes from Pino's brain to Pino's hand to a Team One player dying. So that's really how that's the sort of process that the information goes through. But for me, there is a chance for Team One here. The break's probably going to do them a little bit of good, in all honesty. It gives them time to reset themselves. They're a capable team. At the moment, they're just trying to go, like, everyone's trying to go 1v5. And I kind of want everyone to just play as a team and just have your primary focuses. Take down Pino, take down Muzi. Then let's worry about the rest.
Yeah, I think for Team One right now, it has to come down to working as a team, because the fragging power on the side of NIP right now is all in their favor. Team One, they have to work together. They have to be able to identify these players and get them back together. But I believe that the game is back underway, so you guys can get back into it, and we'll just see whether Team One are going to be able to close the gap.
Thank you very much indeed, Chunks. We are back in business here. Jumping back in to Consulate. Scoreline of 4-0 to NIP. Rejoining things at round number 5. We haven't missed a second.
No, there's not going to be anything that's changed. Nothing that anybody has missed. You can even see the scoreline, just in case you needed to be reminded of the one-sided war zone that it has been. Both these teams looking to go what I believe was the same. I don't remember if Lagonis was playing Ace, but it's the same idea either way as what we saw on round 2. Even though this time the clash was a 6-pick for Kamikaze, maybe they're just trying to throw Team 1 off the scent, but the point is still going to be playing around that shield. Alamau come in on the IQ, Levy once again on Nomad. I do find it interesting. You know, actually one of the things that you mentioned, Ollie, back on that round was the fact that you still had 3 air jabs in pocket very late into the game.
Oh, don't even remind me, Gia.
But I find it really interesting, especially when you couple this idea with the fact that Team 1 banned Vigil. I think Team 1 are expecting NIP to lean way more heavily into a roam than they have been. And it's not that NIP have been playing very anchor heavy, but they're not going overboard with roaming, no more than you would really expect them to, right? They're just kind of normal levels of roaming. So it's interesting to me that they are doing that. Now you can hear an air jab be placed, so at least that's been done.
Yeah, I don't think that Levy will live that one down as when the VOD review really starts to take place and we see that he's still got 3. At least he's only got 2 now. Means he's used 1. So already, Team 1 making moves and making upgrades. Alamau still going to be searching out for those Valkyrie cameras. It's, I think the statistic, Gio, and this is a really random one, I think there's 40 trees outside of Consulate.
40? Did you count them?
No, once I mentioned it on broadcast and someone replied on Reddit. So the post is there on Reddit somewhere. They did it in the subreddit. There is a ridiculous amount of trees. And that's just how many Valkyrie camera spots you've got to try and check. So even with the IQ and the scanner, it is still a task that can take so long. And especially when they're inside, because then you've spent all your time trying to find them outside. And there's one inside a copy anyway. We can see that there's one inside of meeting. Still, it's providing a lot of information here for NIP, but we have seen a bit of a slower round.
If there's anybody in chat who can verify the 40 trees thing, or someone who can post it on Reddit, that'd be great. Someone go load up a lobby right now and count the trees. Because we can't do that for ourselves. Now, I am very happy to see that Team 1 have made their way into the building, present over towards copy. Alamount, of course, still on rappel. That was something that did come to hurt him on one of the rounds when the black eyes outside hadn't been found out, but given that he's present on IQ, I would assume that that's not so much an issue here. He also played a lot on rappel back in round number 2, which is how he managed to... Oh, no. That's how he managed to get the relevant kill onto Kamikaze in a kind of face-off with him. Disappointing C4 there from Muzi is what my oNe was about, but I guess he's just going to run away and ignore it.
Never happened, that. He doesn't know what we are talking about mentioning that C4. It just doesn't exist. 20 seconds left. 10 players alive. It's not going to be the easiest push with a clash being brought. Shields regularly relied upon by NIP to get the job done, but dealt with swiftly as the first order of business. As Alamount finds himself a couple of kills. Psycho, big C4 comes in. It's going to be shot out mid-air, but Muzi, he can't be stopped. He's found himself a good couple of rounds there. Stopped the plan from going down. A much scrappier round, but a round nonetheless. NIP.
It once again comes down to a 1 versus 1 at the end. And even though it wasn't 1 necessarily, because no one died in that final engagement, it was still a reflection of what we saw in round 2. Except this time, the plant didn't even make it onto the ground. So that is a step back from how far they got in round 2. Now, I think we'll get to see it. So for those of you who are hungry for some cheeky Muzi replays, should get to have a look at that one again. But NIP are now one round
away.
off of one round off of map point. And Team 1 so far have failed to put anything on the board. Now, as we've spoken about before, that could change at the half. We have to keep our minds and our hearts open for it. Is your heart open, Ollie?
I tell you what, Gio, for 8 PM British summertime on a Saturday while I'm just trying to chill and catch some siege, that ain't a question that I really want to go into.
Oh, so your heart's not open. I get it.
It's like a stone.
I get it. Walt Disney is disappointed.
Well, NIP, I don't know. Are they open? Are they closed? How would you describe a 5-0
It's a good segue, Ollie. It's a really great segue.
Do you know what I mean? 5-0.
I think they are closed for kills and open for, I don't know.
Business.
Yeah!
Closed for deaths, open for business. Honestly. I really wasn't expecting this to be the case. And I appreciate we're having a bit of a laugh and a joke with this game because it kind of is that, right? You know, NIP have came and taken 5 rounds. Pino, is there a round he hasn't had the opening kill in? He's going to take down Levy here again. Levy has been first or second blood pretty much every time on the side of Team 1. As the cameras have evolved yet again, this guy just has a camera position for every occasion. And it's another round that Team 1 are going to be fighting from the off at a disadvantage.
Psycho's out hunting on the yellow stairs. So far, not finding anything. A lot of going to say a lot of window play from Team One, as if that's a really obscure and crazy thing to find on Consulate.
Yeah,
another really well-placed Black Eye, but I suspect that Team One have found it, and that's what that ping will be. So I would imagine that that's been removed at this point. Ooh, who even was that? Someone getting really close to the window up there in the waiting room, and Neskin didn't get a chance to take them down. Oh, Alamount does get a kill using a Claymore, though, so punishing the runouts that NIP have been trying to take. Certainly a nice way to go, and Lagonis adding on to the kill count, too.
This feels a little bit better from Team 1. Sure, they've been run out on, but the Claymore was there when it mattered. Alamau is still alive, he's found himself a couple of frags, and Pino is still playing so aggressively, as is Muzi. These guys just do not give up. They're not relenting. They're saying, look, if you want this build, and if you want to be able to come in, you're going to have to fight us all the way. We're in 2 versus 3 currently. There's a minute remaining. Pino playing vertically. He is going to find himself a kill out of the connector window. Lagonis trades on back. Now, Pino has had quite the standout game, even by his standards, but the hatch is being watched. Team 1, they will respond. They will finally pick up a round here and break the dry streak.
Hey, look, this could be the start of something new. We just saw the Black Dragons Ints game where a 6-2 turned into a 7-8. So we could be on the same track here, but we could also not be. I mean, NIP have just looked incredible. Now that we are on the other side, though, I am very interested to see how it's going to go. I mean, look, Team 1, they've decided they're not going to lean into the Valkyrie. I would imagine a lot of the reason being is that they probably don't scrim with Valkyrie that often because she's banned so frequently, and they want to lean into what it is that they have prepared and what they've scrimmed rather than just trying to be opportunistic and take something that they haven't practiced. That would be a big assumption of mine, and I think that's perfectly fair. But it is a potential, missed opportunity, and it looks like NIP are preparing themselves for the likelihood of them bringing that because they too have brought an IQ, which is going to absolutely be useful against something like the yokai drones. But Team 1 simply aren't going to use that for themselves. Now, they are going into quite the heavy anchor as well because they have both the Echo and a smoke, as well as, once again, something we've seen a lot of today, Ollie, regardless of the map, and that is Mute Mozzie.
Yeah, it's a staple pick. It's denying that information. I think with the extra intel that's available in attackers at the moment, in that, Iana isn't a brand new thing, but it's something that, because of recent changes to Ashe and such, is becoming much more prevalent in the pick rate. The Mute Mozzie combo becomes so important to just try and soak up as many of those drones as possible. And of course, the ever-present danger of Flores being brought. Now, I doubt it's something that NIP are going to get on. We've not really seen them use it all too much. They're fairly set in their composition, so a bit of a, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it mentality. Neskin himself caught out here. I'm not sure he knows where Pino is, but Pino going to dip away for the time being. Just the very fact they know where Neskin is playing is almost enough at this stage. He can start to work vertically and get his job done in terms of removing utility, and then maybe start to worry about his flank.
Going for a rotate on the outside, and it looks like a lot of Team 1 are moving back down into the basement, which is, of course, where the site is. Yokai drone being placed. Not quite placed yet. I think they're looking to see maybe there are any drones around, see if anyone's going to walk in. Well, Psycho was trying to. Levy got that kill pretty easily. Kind of strange for NIP to go for something so brazen and just waltz on through the door.
Yeah, especially when they've got utility and means to not do that. Now, sure, Kamikaze has brought stuns instead of smoke grenades, so maybe a little bit of an oversight, because at this stage you would be looking for some sort of cover to try and make your way on into that garage. With Lagonis still alive as well, it does pose a little bit of a threat, and all of a sudden, NIP are really being forced to fight back here. Julio is still going to be outside of that garage, but Kamikaze's actually got himself all the way in, going to eat the C4, drop the diffuser. Leaves Julio in the clutch situation, finds himself one, still a full minute to play with. Gone are the days of NIP trying to execute with only 10 seconds left. Julio has a long time to try and make this happen here. A couple of drones out for him as well, but likely a yokai drone that will be spotting him out. He's going to have to try and take these engagements. Going for a little bit of a bait here. No one really taking it for the time being. He pre-fires this. He might see some success. Does find the shot onto KDS. Can he whip over and finish Alamau as well? It would be a great 1 versus 3 for him if he did, but no, Alamau ducking and diving. The SMG-11, the gun that he is known to be exceptional with, delivers for him when it needed to.
The streak of 7-1s is officially over for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They let everybody down.
What a terrible way to start the stage.
I know. Crazy. No, but it's great for Team 1 because they need to be clawing these rounds back. They got their first defensive round as a win. That's great. It sets a good precedent going forward. And they're going to be going to the split site for the first time in this whole game. Ninjas in Pyjamas didn't visit there when they were on when they were on defense, sorry. So new environment. I guess it looks like Team 1 are going to be going for something fairly standard here. They've decided to 6-pick over to the Pulse so that they don't give away their intentions to Ninjas in Pyjamas in the operator pick phase. But it's very classic to see a Pulse be played because you place him downstairs, give over all the information as to the whereabouts of the attackers who are above you, and you also have a C4 too. Combine that with the C4s in the hands of Alamau and Neskin on the Mozzie and Malusi as well, and that makes you quite a threat for anyone who is looking to push above. Now, of course, there is always the option to push down below, and we have seen a number of teams here in Brazil go for that option instead, even though it is the less favorable one that most attacking teams will go for. My question here is, NIP have played with such confidence so far in Stage 2 that are they going to be worried about the risks that are associated with pushing down below? Or are they going to try and just play this the standard way even though they know that there's the risk of the projectiles?
Well, time will tell which option we are going to see NIP go with. Muzi rocking the old G36C. If anyone's wondering why, it's because the R4C has been changed significantly enough that players are now favouring the G36, which, honestly, to my mind, is a great weapon. I love it on Iana. I think it's fantastic. And it, certainly no R4C of old, but it sort of plugs the gap a little bit that was left behind. Aside from that, it's kind of a little bit strange to see Ash being run. Muzi's maybe one of the few players at the moment, Gio, that's still playing on Ash, as opposed to you think about other sort of entry roles and other Ash players. They've all sort of migrated away. Ooh, what an opening!
He saw the ankles, and he just knew. Is that Kamikaze's first kill? No, it's his second kill. Okay. That was really nice, though. Lagonis getting aggressive in return, though, actually gets the trade onto Kamikaze. And Muzi going down, too. So that Ash player no longer going to be in play. NIP weakened compared to Team 1 at this point, as Team 1 seemed to have no fear as they anticipate all of these entries coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Did we big NIP up a little bit too much? Because at the minute, this round in particular, and sure, it obviously hasn't gone the way they were anticipating, but it isn't looking too hot from NIP. They've left themselves with a lot to do here. Alamau going to get caught out on the air jab. That's going to be a big sound cue, but the heads-up play from Pino. He knew exactly what Alamau was likely to do in that situation. The big kill. Levels things up entirely for free. Nothing lost on the side of NIP at that point. Psycho can look to push on through a little bit further now. Neskin will be able to take down Pino. Again, the balance shifting backward and forward. Julio, he's just going to take this as a straight-up engagement. He's got a yellow ping. Can he land his shots? He's getting double peaked. Nobody there to back him on up. Psycho, he's got himself a nade and he has himself a chance. Finds the kill over onto Neskin, forcing him out. Another nade, likely going to do the same here for KDS. Can't land the shots. Great utility usage by Psycho. He's only got one player left to find, but admittedly, 14 seconds. Lagonis, he takes the initiative. As I'm not waiting to be peaked, I will do the peeking. have a bit of information, and go for the pre-fire.
Psycho really did try at the end there, and some of my concerns from the beginning did certainly come up in that game, or in that round rather, and I think also a bit more than we bargained for, because a number of those kills were taken simply trying to like walk through the door of Visa. You know, Team 1 played pretty aggressively. They weren't afraid to have their defense stationed upstairs and ready for the players of NIP to try and make their way in. But NIP getting taken down one by one certainly hurt their efforts of pushing in. And then their attempt at actually going downstairs and approaching the site from there ended up falling because there simply weren't enough players to be able to make that work. They had to do it, though. I mean, you just can't try and take that site if there's only a couple of you. So that's where I look back and I say, yeah, maybe NIP would have done better to go directly downstairs, but you can't necessarily foresee everything that's going to happen in a round before it happens. That's why you see teams losing rounds. And it was very clear that NIP didn't feel as comfortable attacking onto Archives and Tellers like they may have been on one of these more quote-unquote standard sites. And maybe we'll see a difference in that here on CEO. This is one of the sites that I did question the way that NIP played it on attack back in stage 1. You know, they tried to do these yellow stairs takes that would be a bit strange because the idea would be there, but they would be uncoordinated in their push, and they would waste a lot of time trying to make it into the stairwell itself. They wouldn't have someone go in through bathroom at the same time as breaching into the stairs, and overall you wouldn't really achieve all that much. I'm assuming that NIP have brought something new and they've actually grown from that time of old, but they certainly have had a history of struggling to attack onto this site in particular.
We'll see how Team 1 plan to make this difficult. We've got quite an extensive setup going on. We've got mirror windows and Evil Eyes being strategically positioned to face said mirror window. Obviously in an attempt to shoot off the Selma or whatever it might be. There's a laser gate on it as well. This is like most heavily protected mirror window in the world. Kamikaze's going to be inside of admin, and well, if nobody pushes in from this west side, that mirror window might go to nothing.
I mean, I guess we'll find out what the fate of the mirror window is to be. Maybe you can get rid of a drone? Look at all this, like, presence. They were covering all 3 floors. Alamau all the way downstairs. Lagonis, the first one to be picked off. He was a player who did so well in the last round. Levy gets a kill in return to make that before Pino can finally finish him off. It puts in a 2 versus 2, in fact, here, Ollie.
Kills really traded back and forward. NIP have done a great job to figure out what it is that is actually going on here and to come up with a plan, but Team 1 just one step ahead. We do see the player drop as well. That's going to be Alamau. KDS underneath. He knows where the diffuser is. He's likely got intel. That C4 surely should land. It's going to land, but not all the way. Psycho is chunked down. Alamau looking to make his way over into admin. They're really forcing Psycho to get a plant down here, and there's loads of time left. But he has to act. Gets the plant down. That could be the first mistake. The only difficulty is he doesn't have any information. Alamau, however, he knows exactly where he's going to be coming from because he's just got the plant down inside of theatre. Well, the round will be won there only just by Team 1. KDS, I don't know if that was an accident. I don't know if he's padding his stats. He wants another diffuse on his diffuse column. Or maybe it'll weirdly count as like a 1 versus 2 clutch now or something like that. I'm not too sure, but the round will go to Team 1 nonetheless. Are we going to see this leveled up at 5 apiece?
God, can you imagine? When I made the joke comparing it to the previous game between Black Dragons and Ints, I was joking. Like, I want to put that out there. I was making a joke, but now it actually feels a bit more real. Like, it could actually happen. I mean, look, Team 1 have done their cycle of 3 sites. How many of those 3 sites have NIP won?
0.
Yeah. That's worrying.
It is very worrying. it's worrying for a lot of reasons as well, because, you know, we can't expect we can't expect NIP to 7-0, 7-1 absolutely everybody. But what we should be able to expect off them is a couple of rounds here and there on the attack, which they haven't been able to do so far. Now, what is going to be the difference maker inside of this round? Well, Psycho's brought Ying, so they're already grabbing at those sort of big disruption operators that they're going to try and bring and cause a little bit of a nuisance with. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I imagine, sorry, that smokes will be being brought this time as well, as Kamikaze and Julio really struggled to get themselves into sight previously. But they've got a lot of work to do elsewhere. Pino is not able to get a load of kills like he was able to do whilst on the defense in terms of entry. And Team One are a team that are capable of contesting out there on the roam, and they've shown that to us.
Just having a look at when NIP have played Consulate in recent history, they actually only played it twice at the Six Invitational, once against Liquid, once again, or at least they only won it twice at the Six Invitational, which is against Liquid and BDS. So that was where I'd seen some of their strategies change and improve. But here against Team One, they're really struggling to keep up on the attack. Now, this is that kind of setup that I said that NIP had moved away from, where you have the fully reinforced bathroom upstairs. I'm very interested to see how Neskin's setup is going to affect them, especially if they're looking to use the Ying Candelas. You really need control of Piano to get those to work, assuming that you're going to use them up there, right? I can't think of a better place that you would want to use them, and there you go. They're actually starting to come in.
Well, that is one way to approach the site, but look at the confusion. It has been called off. NIP have said abort mission. Smoke grenades have been expended, 2 of them. The only 2 that have been brought. Kamikaze has got flashes. All of the Candelas have been used as well. And nothing has been gained. NIP just aborted mission. They committed. Couldn't get the plant down. Didn't want to try and stay. There's still Toxic Babe canisters. There was still Yokai drones. There was too much for them to try and deal with. And now, basically, everybody is out of utility. There is 1 Ash Breaching round, and obviously IQ Scanner, a couple of Yokai drones, but ultimately, this is going to be a gunfight. There's information available on both sides. NIP have plenty of drones left, but they're now looking to try and formulate another plan. It's going to be very difficult to just push on in without any significant cover. That cover could start to come in the form of Muzi as Alamau gets caught on out and instantly swung. He will be taken down there by Muzi. A well-placed air jab will be enough, but it's only really control of yellow stairs, and even then you've got to deal with the player inside of this security room. You've got to deal with Lagonis. How many kills can NIP get by just picking away here at Team One? They're slowly dwindling. Neskin, still out on the roam, could make his way down these yellow stairs. Kamikaze, he finds the frag over onto KDS. We can hear the Yokai drone coming out now, trying to stop that plan, but everybody is being pushed. Neskin, last alive, 1 versus 4, 18 seconds. Likely to have intel, but look at what he's got. He's got the SMG-11, and he's going to be taking multiple engagements. Muzi, he has the audio cue from the barbed wire. He knows exactly where to expect. Neskin going to be able to find that final kill. NIP, they put themselves onto a match point.
I like that NIP were patient and decisive. They didn't push in on the first Candela. That was a good call. But they kind of set a precedent there. They forced positioning of the defenders back a bit. They stayed together. They stuck to the plan that they had. And they actually came in as a force that, you know, with coordination amongst itself, brought down Team One, and actually pretty decisively as well. It's not like we had those similar situations to what we've had in the last few rounds, where it's been a 4 versus 4 to a 4 versus 3 to a 3 versus 3 to, you know, and so on and so forth. So that is the first attacking round that NIP have taken, but it was also a really good one. But we're going back to archives and tellers. This was a site that NIP looked the most lost on when attacking. Now, it could have been partially to do with the fact that they didn't expect to be taken down, or at least have 2 players be taken down as early as they did, especially when one of them was Muzi, right? You look to him to be doing a lot of entry work, and he's taken straight off the board, and oh, well, what do we do now? I'm not saying that NIP are the type of team who lose 1 player and suddenly bury their heads in the sand, but I think their approach kind of got thrown into turmoil pretty early on. One thing that we can expect them to do is adapt. You know, this is a very smart team. Julio is absolutely going to be giving really relevant calls to them and coming up with something that is good, hopefully. So I don't expect NIP to be doing the same approach as they did last time. I think they will learn from it. And that means that this isn't necessarily as definitely Team 1's round as maybe you'd want to assume based on the performance back in round number 8.
Lagonis opting for the pulse this time. Going to be able to search out for where this push is going to establish itself from. Obviously, there's a little balance to that in Pino bringing the IQ, as he's going to get an idea as well as to where that pulse could be playing. And, of course, any other electronics on the side of Team 1. A lot of pressure on this round, really, for both sides here, and Team 1 going to be making that rotation back. Levy makes himself back onto site. Interesting they've left that hatch open, as it could be a very quick and easy route of access for these attackers.
You know, working to open up the admin floor, maybe to provide some pressure down below. We do, of course, remember that Team 1 had defensive presence on the ground floor that caught NIP out early. So if you can pressure them from above, then maybe you can clear that out. With Levy getting the first kill onto Julio, it doesn't look like it's necessarily going to be that way. NIP now one man down, and Psycho's going to hunt out some of these players who are present upstairs.
It's like the roam clear happened, and then players drop back on the defense, and then players slowly but surely creep their way back on up and manage to get around any of the air jabs or hang around upstairs for long enough to keep themselves relevant and keep themselves in the fight. NIP, they look a little bit lost. They're still sort of very split in between what it is they're trying to achieve here, but Kamikaze, he knows exactly where he is, and he's going to be getting that plant down. Levy, he finds a kill over onto Psycho. There's a lot of confusion and a big distraction, and you wonder if that was exactly the plan all along, but even if it was never going to work out. Levy, he takes down Kamikaze. Team 1, they take this 5-6. There is still the potential here for an overtime.
NIP weren't solid enough at being able to get rid of the roamers for Team 1. They had their approach, and it was an adaptation on what happened last time, but it of course didn't take into account the fact that Team 1 were making their own adaptations, and having a lot of upstairs presence was something that NIP went to try and deal with quite a decent way into the round. So you don't have a ton of time to try and get rid of those players. You've still got to try and go in for a plant. You know there are people below you. While the plant was being made, it just felt like people were falling left, right, and center, surrounding it. And yeah, sure, you get a plant down, that's great. But if you don't win the round, it doesn't matter. You still lost the round. You don't gain anything from planting. So when you've just got one guy left at the end because everybody's gone down like flies around you, you know, what can you do?
I'm probably going to be hitting a quick tech pause here, but we will... we have hit the quick tech pause, actually. We'll wait for full confirmation on that, but I think one of the players on the side of NIP having a little bit of trouble. I'm going to have to remake the lobby, but we will be back as soon as humanly possible. I'm not saying that the first break was the reason for this game and for Team 1 to get themselves back into it, Gio, but I'm also not saying that it wasn't. Team 1 seemed to do quite well after the previous break, the previous technical break that we had to have. So, yeah, bit of a strange one. We come at quite a important point in the game as well. 6-5 to NIP currently. Lot to play for in this next round.
Yeah, NIP have one more chance to be able to take this in regulation. And considering how well they did on their first 2 Playdays, this feels like real hardship that they've had to face, right? This feels like the most difficult thing. And when we got to the end of the first half, and it looked as dominant as it did, it was almost a shame to see, knowing how hard Team 1 have worked, how well they've done over the last few months, and to see them kind of floundering against NIP and being made to look like not an equal, not a tier 1 team up against them, you know? And then now we're actually seeing where that comes in. Team 1 looks so much more comfortable against NIP. They are taking them in gunfights. They're not afraid to play against them. And I think that's a very important part of it as well, is they're not backing out in fear. They're not worried about what Pino and Muzi going to do to them. I think that's something that, especially if you're a less experienced team or a slightly lower team, you probably would do.
Let's see if NIP are able to get their act together. They started this game incredibly strong. It'd be a heartbreaking defeat if they were to lose it at this point, but for Team 1, it'd show such great fortitude. I saw Alamal posted on Twitter, he retweeted one of the NIP sort of organization posts the other night, and it was something along the lines of, and obviously this is translated via Twitter, so who knows what it really says, but it's usually, the gist is usually there. And it was a photo of Julio, and he just looked laser focused at his screen, like he was just like gaming, like ready to go. And Alamal comments,
is it like Karjeka though?
It was worse. It was like a death stare into the screen. And Alamal comments like saying something like not even God can win tomorrow against NIP. And I read it at the time last night, and I was like, oh, they sound really confident, like, you know, coming on into this game. And obviously it's all in jest, and if you follow any of the Brazilian guys on Twitter, and I highly recommend you do, it's there usually is a lot of fun and a lot of sort of jokes flying around. They've really got a good sense of humor. But it just made me laugh now to see us in this position where it's like, Team 1 actually could still do this. They could take it to an overtime, and they could go the whole way.
They could. And I guess, what is that? Does that mean Team 1 are more than God? Are they better than a god? Are they a hyper god?
Not sure.
A giga god?
Not sure.
Because if not even God can beat NIP. And obviously NIP could still win. They could still win in regulation. We don't even necessarily have to go into overtime. But Team 1 could also, you know?
Well, let's see how it all shakes out. The break could be good. It does sort of ruin the momentum, especially when it's tech issues and things aren't working. You know, the guys on the side of NIP there, you can see them, and whilst Kamikaze's talking and saying a little bit, we can't see the mouths of a few of the other players, but it doesn't seem to be... It seems like stress that is on their faces, and it's likely stress of a technical issue. You know, they want to get in, they want to get playing, they want to get Psycho back in the lobby, and they're coming up against this obstacle, whatever it is, computer problem, or I don't know. So it does make it difficult in that regard, especially when you got Team 1 there ready and waiting to go, as it were. But one round and NIP would secure it. One round for Team 1, and we would have ourselves another overtime here. A lot rides on this next 4 or so minutes when we get into game.
Just makes you wonder what way to expect it to go. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be going to CEO because that's where they've been going for their third site on the defense. CEO was won by Team 1 when they came here in round number 9. But it was probably the closest of the first 3 rounds. There was a plant that was made. So, you know, there's hope for NIP. Finally back into game, though. I'm sure you guys will get to see very shortly about that. It doesn't look like you're going to CEO, though.
Oh, garage. Garage and cafeteria. It makes a lot of sense, you know, especially when you think back to how we saw NIP attack this site previously. We saw NIP attempt to bring the Ying. All of the utility went in sort of one big lump, and they were left with not a lot. They were left with no significant pushing power. Now, this time we don't have the Ying. We do have the sledge. Psycho going to be looking to, no doubt, get upstairs and make an impact that way. But still, it's all enough to force the Warden pick out, and Lagonis is going to be playing Warden. Obviously, Warden's glass is able to reduce the stun the stun from flashbangs, and it's a great little counter to Ying. If you still, you can see through the smokes. There's a lot of things that the glasses can do, so he's going to be able to deal with basically any onslaught that can be thrown at him by the side of NIP. So pending his position, he could just be another big problem for NIP to deal with, because they haven't been able to consistently get into this garage.
All right, NIP, this is your opportunity. You can break your way into this and come away with a regulation win. Not the scoreline you would have looked for at the start, not reflective of what you did last week. You can still do this. However, Team 1 have made it look very difficult for you to be able to do it. So good luck. In goes an air jab from Julio. I suspect that's to try and prevent jump outs. Team 1 again aren't bringing Valkyrie, even though Pino is on the IQ to potentially hunt out for one. And there's no Echo either, as you mentioned, the Warden, why they might have chosen to bring him, even though Team 1 did play Echo instead just a few rounds ago.
That's going to be one C4 of many. Team 1 really bringing the explosives here, looking to try and make it very difficult, very awkward to have that upstairs control. Neskin already going to be forced on out of the bathroom area, though, as it's not really been set up, air quotes, properly. It's not been set up to stay there for a long time. It's just to burn enough time. Well, they feel like they have done just that. Still, 2 C4s do remain. 2 out of the 4 that were brought, so there's potential for some vertical kills coming in. Muzi has made his way down onto yellow. NIP looking a lot more coordinated here, Gio.
Yep, it certainly seems that way. I mean, they're all still alive, so that's great. Once again, working to just open up the anti-chamber floor. That will, or should, allow them to get a lot of vertical pressure. Levy took a really hefty amount of damage there, although I don't know where from. Toxic Vape Canister being thrown out as well as a deterrent to NIP. Is Psycho. He's made his way into the bathroom and gets a really nice kill onto Alamount. That's the first, and that also means Smoke is off the board.
Kamikaze was attempting to get the plant down there. Julio going to have to try and cover him, and he can re-attempt that plant after finding a frag over onto Lagonis. Julio and Muzi close out the show as if we ever doubted them. NIP, they take Consulate. It was a lot closer than we were expecting. 7-5 against Team 1 here. Quite easily. Could have been a 7-2, 7-3, but they had to go the long way around this time, Gio.
They certainly had to fight for it this time, but NIP just came into that final round despite the tech issues, looking refreshed, looking very coordinated. Maybe it gave them an opportunity to kind of recenter themselves, get back to, the mind process or whatever it is, and finally pulled out the victory. And you can see them in their player clams looking very happy together. So I'm sure they're glad about that, even if it wasn't necessarily the scoreline they were hoping for.
A win's a win. And that really is all that matters at the end of the day. Chunks, get yourself back in here and let's break down that game. There is quite a bit to break down as well. It could have been a lot quicker than it was.
It absolutely could have been, and you know what? When I saw the player cams then, I'm not sure whether it was joy or whether it was relief on the face of Nip, because you can tell that was a hard-fought one there. It felt like they were going to take it, super early on, but Team 1, they managed to turn things around. What the hell happened there, Ollie? How did they manage to close up that gap?
I think moving on to the opposite side obviously helped Team 1 a lot when they got themselves onto the defense. And it really was a case of as soon as you get Pino off the Valkyrie, you're going to start seeing a little bit of an easier time. And NIP, they weren't like they were in stage 1. They weren't as slow and they weren't as sort of lackluster on their attacks as they were in stage 1, but there was elements of that creeping in. And it was a little bit scary to watch because you're like, are they just going to regress into that previous form? Eventually, NIP able to pull it out, obviously, in the end. But it could have been a little bit cleaner. They didn't make it as easy as they could have done for themselves. And, you've got to expect that against a team like Team 1. They are going to punish you. They're going to take rounds.
Yeah, it felt like it was almost an underdog story. At times, it felt like, Nip earlier on, managed to get a plant down. It was a 2 versus 2, but they ended up losing it anyway. Team One able to come back. It was super impressive. Geo, the question is now, if you're Nip, you were so confident last week, is this maybe not their confidence a little bit, or do you think that, you know, coming into tomorrow's games, they're going to be back to the standard Nip that we saw last week?
No, Ninjas in Pyjamas are still going to move forward thinking they're the best team in the world. This is absolutely the nature of this team. They know what they are. They're not going to let... If Ninjas in Pyjamas let a loss... This wasn't even a loss, but let's say they let a loss get to their heads. Do you think they would have walked away with a hammer at SI? Ninjas in Pyjamas exude confidence, always.
That's a fair point, and a man who I'm sure is feeling very confident after not only last week's games, but also this one is going to be Julio from NIP. Julio, it was a long one, but you managed to do it in the end. How was it for you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, it was like we did some good defenses, but yeah, on the last rounds it was hard to attack, but we closed it out.
Yeah, for you guys, did it feel like there was a danger of Team One being able to take it when they started getting round after round, or were you just putting on a show feeling confident?
Yeah, for sure. We always know, like, there's no easy match in Brazil. All teams are really good. But yeah, we went in calm. We were on the ahead, you know, 1 round to finish the match, and yeah, we were really calm.
Now, I have to ask, Valkyrie was left in this game. Did you plan to use Valkyrie, or was it more like because she wasn't banned, you saw the opportunity and you made it work? Because you guys got a lot of value out of her.
Yeah, for sure. We knew they're gonna use Valk, so they not gonna ban. So we got some good cameras, and yeah, it was really good on defense, the Valkyrie for sure.
I think that's probably one of the more surprising things, isn't it, right? That we thought that they would ban Valkyrie against you, obviously with how good Pino can be with those cameras. We were really expecting that to get removed, so it was a kind of a surprise for us when it was left on in. Julio, my question to you would be, there was a round in round number 11, and it was attacking onto the split site, and you were able to... Sorry, Kamikaze was able to get himself in and hop up and try and get that plant down. What was the call there inside of that round? Because things looked to be getting a bit desperate for you guys on the attack. Things weren't really working for you. Was the call just to try and get something down and to work with the distraction?
Yeah, for sure. That round was hard, and yeah, we didn't play like that structured. You know, we play like more freestyle, and I think it didn't work out some rounds. So, like you saw in the last round, we did a default play and work out. You know, we always try to change the rhythm of the game and the strategies, and yeah, that's how we play. But that round was like kind of desperate. You know, they played really good.
Yeah, it felt like, you know, in your attacking side, you definitely did struggle, which is why we saw the game kind of go on to the later stages. What I want to ask you is, you know, you went and attacked Garage. It felt like multiple times, and they didn't really work out. Was that something you were consciously aware of, or was it one of those things where, hey, we lost it this time, but maybe if we make a small adjustment, we can come in and clear it out?
The finals of the invitation, we can like try a lot of new things, you know, for the future. You know, like our attacks in this match was not that good, so we're gonna fix that. And yeah, we just try to change some things. And like you said, we tried some attack rounds on Garage, like with some different operators. It didn't work out, but yeah, we tried, and we're gonna save that strategy for the future. And that's how we managed to got a lot of strategies, you know, for the big tournaments.
Well, I mean, it definitely shows that you're not afraid to try something different, and in the end, you're able to clutch it out. Julio, thank you once again for joining us, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of you over the next stage.
Thank you. Hope to see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow then, I guess. Sure,
Yeah.
Let's just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Thank you once again to Julio for that one, but there's still one more game to focus on, so we're going to take a very short break before that happens, get ourselves some water. I'm sure Gio and Ollie need a bit of a rest after that one, because it was a long one. We've had a lot of long matches tonight. We'll see how the last one ends up unfolding, whether it's going to be a close one or whether it's going to go the distance again in just a couple minutes.